I'm looking today at Acts chapter 17, and in Acts of the Apostles, in chapter 17, Paul goes to the great city of Athens. Now, I think of Athens a little bit like how Vienna was in the late 19th century, or maybe some of our great metropolitan cities now, New York or San Francisco or London. Places of a lot of cultural exchange, ideas, Berlin in Germany, other places which have become major centres of conversation and discussion. And that's very true of Acts 17, Athens, which is portrayed here as a place where ideas were battered back and forth, and people picked up scraps of wisdom and insight. But of course all these things were really based on human wisdom and not on God's wisdom. And Paul comes with fresh ideas, the truth of the gospel, the reality of who Jesus is, the power of the resurrection. And just reading here, it says, "Now while Paul was waiting for them at Athens, he was exasperated to see how the city was full of idols. So he argued in the synagogue with the Jews and Gentile worshippers, and also in the city square every day with casual passers-by." And then he goes on to talk about how he went to the court of Areopagus, which is basically the sort of discussion hall, a place of interchange, a place of ideas meeting. Sometimes we find ourselves in that forum in our lives. We might be in a place of great learning, or we might just be in the everyday conversation that goes on in the cafe or the workplace or at the bus stop. And whatever our context is, whatever our situation, whether we feel it's highly intellectual and greatly educated, or whether it's just very ordinary, everyday, people come out with their ideas. They come out with what's formed their thinking, what's created their worldview. We might not think of it in that way, but people come up with the things that have formed their opinions and their views of the world around them. And what's important for Christians is not so much our political views, not so much our ideas about who's right and who's wrong about all sorts of other things. It's fundamentally, what is our view of Jesus? What is our view of the truth of how God shows the world to be? What is our view of Scripture? What is our view of the things that God says are really important? The values, the things that He says are the keys to people's hearts. What are our views about life and death, about eternity? And these are the things that matter deeply. And people can form and have a foundation for their lives based on so many different things. So many things that for them answer all the big questions, but the key is that Jesus is the biggest answer of all. He is the biggest answer to the big question of sense of meaning, purpose. Why are we here? What are we doing here? Where do we fit in the big scheme of things? That's the thing that matters most. So I pray today that we would be refocused on knowing who Jesus is, refocused on that eternal perspective, refocused on getting the whole view of our world around us based on knowing the truth of His word and who He is and the person of Jesus Himself.